Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Mr. Joynt live show. We are on episode 8 of Conspiracies and Cold Beverages with Mr. Joynt. We are talking tonight about the stock market crashes and the US dollar. So, it should be an interesting episode. We are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. So, if you are on Facebook right now, make sure you share this video with all your friends. We may not be friends with the same people, but if you share the Facebook page, we could all start getting connected. And also, we are on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube, and I always post the link to the show on Facebook. So if you want to chat live with Mr. Joynt, you just click on the link to the YouTube channel and you can switch over. And when you get to the channel, make sure you click on videos and the live show will appear. And then you can chat live with Mr. Joynt. But when you're on there, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And the only reason why is so you get notifications. So when we go live, you are with us. And we are here every Friday night. And we appreciate you being with us on a Friday night. Now, some of you all have your paperwork and you can go out to restaurants and you can go to concerts and stuff. But for some of you who don't have your paperwork, you may be stuck with us at home. And so we appreciate your viewership. And also, we have Mr. Joynt Live t shirts. They are available. All we ask is a small donation, and you can donate through Cash App. And we use Cash App to, we are, uh, uh, fortunately, we got an award from YouTube. Okay, so we are the number one least watch show on YouTube. Okay, so we got an award. It's a good award. Nobody watches this show, so it's great. But if you don't have Cash App, you can use this code. It is in the description on the YouTube channel. You just click on the link. You can do some quick little banking information, and you get a free $5. Now, after you watch this show, you'll realize that $5 isn't worth a whole lot of money. Okay, but if you already have Cash App, you could buy Mr. Joynt a cold beverage. Okay, that's one way we donate to the show. And you can use that Cash App code right there at the bottom of your screen. This is $ R Joint, and you get a free T-shirt. Now I have one here. Mr. Joynt is getting his fitted right now. He's putting his on. But here is one. Whoops, I got it all sideways. But here's one. It's a Mr. Joynt Live t-shirt. It's a little souvenir. And if you donate to the show, you get a free one. Now, you may ask, how is it free if I have to pay for it? Well, you're not paying for it. You're donating. Okay, donating. All right. So you can also be a guest on Mr. Joynt Live. We always appreciate different perspectives. Our perception is our reality. So if you have a different perspective on issues that we talk about, it'd be great to, discuss those with you. You could come on the show live. And the way we do that is you could contact me on Facebook Messenger if we are friends on Facebook. If we're not friends on Facebook, obviously you will have to send me a friend request. If you don't want to be my friend, that's fine. You can email me to robbiejoynt@hotmail.com, and then we can discuss what the show will be about and all that fun stuff. Okay, and before we get started, one quick shout out to our sponsor. We appreciate all the donations, all the support. We are a self-funded show, and but we have sponsors. And if you would like to be a sponsor, we always support local small businesses. We always root for the underdog here. And one of those small businesses is Living Color World on eBay. Okay. So we have some major holidays coming up. We got Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Okay. So before you go on any of the big box stores like the Amazon and the Walmart and the Target and all that, before you shop on any of those, please check out this small business that we're trying to support. It's Living Color World on eBay. So it's real simple. You go on eBay, you go to the search bar, you type in Living Color World, the page shows up, and they specialize in fine jewelry, fine silver, and gold, mostly Tiffany products, but they have a whole wide variety of other items: women's clothes, men's clothes, shoes, baby clothes, ornaments. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's too long for me to get thousands and thousands of items. So before you do any online shopping this year, make sure you visit Living Color World on eBay. Okay, it's a small business, and like I said, we always try to support small businesses. And Mr. Joynt is ready, so let me bring him on and let me welcome him to the show.
Welcome
What's
to the
up,
show.
buddy?
There it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
there it is. Look at that.
Okay. Except my
Beautiful.
name, where my name is positioned, comes out a little too far. Sorry, just kidding.
Oh,
Um,
because the belly.
well, it's kind of like Annette Funicello on the Mouseketeers in the 1950s. She wore a tight sweater. She was a teenage Mouseketeer, and there were certain letters on her name that came out a little closer to the camera than usual, and that's probably not a good way to start off our show. But anyway, if you were in a
That's your show.
Mouseketeer in the 1950s, then oh well. And tonight is the 50th anniversary, I guess, of tonight and tomorrow night. Westminster Academy. So those of you that graduated from there are celebrating their 50th anniversary, 1971 until now. Just to let you know, and they're having a big gala tomorrow at the Marriott Harbor Beach on the beach of Fort Lauderdale, whatever. Since this is cold beverages,
Hey,
I
so
don't know.
real quick,
Yeah,
what are your you call so there's Fort Lickerdale, there's Smoke Raton.
Smoker Raton.
What else? You always come
Uh,
up with these
yeah,
funny
Pompano Bleach.
Pompano bleach, and
Yeah, because
why is that? Because they
I don't
bleach
know.
certain parts of their bodies.
Well, that and I think the way they process drugs, everything has to do
Okay,
with everything goes back to
drugs.
the raunchy past of South Florida. Yeah, Smoker Raton. Oh man, it's endless. I forget. There was something for Coral Springs. I don't think we can say it on the air, but
No,
anyway.
go ahead.
No, I can't remember exactly what it was, but the people at Coral Springs would be probably not happy. All two of the viewers
Well,
probably.
just as long as we don't
No, that's
cuss,
okay. Let's go ahead. Let's get into it.
we try
Go.
to keep it rated PG.
Yeah. So I brought my
What are you
money
drinking
tonight.
tonight? Cold conspiracies and cold beverages.
Yes.
So I'm not
I got,
drinking water tonight.
okay.
What do you
So
got?
silver certificates. I found them. There they are. We'll talk about those. There they are. And sorry, light's
Yeah, that's
probably too
way
much.
down the show on that one.
I know. Let's go. All right. Good. And Confederate money. I have Confederate money also. Hand numbered. Confederate money.
You
So
sure
anyway,
that's not copied or
yeah, I
there's a
don't know.
lot of fakes around those days.
It's
There was a
pretty
lot of
fragile.
counterfeits.
Yeah, it's pretty fragile. There
I
was a.
remember as a kid, you used to keep everything in that Lincoln book.
Oh yeah, and
And
it's
I
still
would go
there.
in that book, that encyclopedia.
Yeah, that's where it was. That's where I had to go.
Yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
I would open it up as a kid and I would look at it and I would hold
Yeah.
it and I would just
Hmm.
be like, wow, old school money.
Yeah. Still have it. So anyway, so here we are.
Here we are. Happy Friday.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad it's Friday. Wow, what a week. Sorry.
I don't know who's watching, but
Yeah.
supposedly we have a lot of viewers.
Okay.
We're the number one least show watch on YouTube.
Well. All right.
And before we get started, though, we have to say a couple things to the viewers. We do not opine any financial advice. Okay,
No.
we're not financial advisors. We're not portfolio managers of any
No.
kind. We're
No.
not
That's right.
telling you
Nothing.
what to do during this broadcast. Okay, we do not opine. I learned that word today, opine. So I'm going
Yeah.
to use it a couple times.
It's
I
a
have a book.
Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly
Yeah, I
used it.
have a book that it teaches you a word per day while I'm on the toilet.
Oh,
And so
jeez.
today's word was opine. So I'm going to use it a few times. So we do not opine uh, any kind of financial service, anything like that. All we're
Okay.
doing on this show is just going over facts. And, Mr. Joynt, for those of you who do not know who he is a U.S. history teacher and he has a master's degree in U.S. history. So he knows the facts, right? And one thing, I'm his son, and one thing I grew up with, growing up with this man, was that when he would teach at school, he would teach the textbook version. But then when we get home, he kind of, my bedtime stories were, Lincoln assassination, JFK assassination, uh, you know, the the fact that the man is always trying to rip us off. And so I thought
Yeah.
tonight would be a great night. And we talked about this last week too, because we touched on the Federal Reserve note, the actual dollar bill, and what was the symbolism on the back of the dollar bill.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought tonight would be a great night, especially after this week. I mean, you talk about some effery, I don't want to say the word, funkery going on with the Federal Reserve and
Yeah.
the the people that run the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Right before the pandemic, they were buying stock. They knew that they were going to start buying up bonds and all this stuff, and so they started shifting their money the
Yeah.
night before all this stuff happened. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of touch on the stock market crash because I think that any kind of incident like that, and is better than I do, that any kind of incident like that kind of brings forth obviously a lot of changes. So
Yeah. Federal Reserve, those guys are so corrupt, man. And there it is. Even the mainstream media was covering it. It was
yeah, well,
pretty brazen.
they didn't cover it; they
No, they
mentioned
didn't.
it.
It was leaked out, and then they had to kind of backtrack. Oh, guess what? And then they start. How shameful of them. But go ahead. Go. What is that?
So this is the stock market crash. So this is how we're going to
Okay.
start the show tonight.
All right.
And you are the subject matter expert on this type of when it comes back to U.S. history and stuff. Let's first touch on this, and then we'll get back to how American currency was founded and all that, the Coinage Act. We'll get into all that, but let's first kind of touch on you know this was a
Yeah.
pivotal moment in history,
Hmm.
obviously. And this was one of your favorite conspiracies,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, the elite did either a call or a put. We talked about this at the end of the last show, right in 1929, right around October. Actually, I think they put the whether it's a call or a sell order. I guess a sell order in August, that if the stock market got to a certain point, sell, and a lot of them got out, except for J.P. Morgan, who tried to put $350 million as it was going down. He wasn't in on the conspiracy, whatever. And hold on, we're getting some interference here. Let me take care of that. Hold on. Oh man,
Technical difficulties, folks. No
sorry. Yeah,
problem. We will
it's
be back.
okay. Hold on, I got it. There it is. Okay, I guess that was the sound, the funereal sounds of people jumping from sky once they found out that their money was gone. That was a way, by the way, to recoup your losses, was to kill yourself. And there were people that were jumping
Not anymore.
from
There's a
buildings.
death tax. So
Yeah. So anyway, so the the elite got out, and everyone else, including your great grandmother, whom you admire, at least you admire her husband, and she
yes,
was his
Grandpa
yes,
Anthony.
yeah, Grandpa Anthony and Grandma Elizabeth Alice,
Yes.
Grandma Alice. Um, Grandma Alice lost $14,000. She went to the bank to get her money out, in Bank of Melbourne, Florida, because that's where they were snowbirding, and they didn't have it because they had spent it and speculated throughout the 1920s like everybody else did. So
But that
the
was
elites,
before the Federal Reserve.
yeah, and of course the elites got out, and the Federal Reserve was formed in 1913, and the Federal Reserve formed in 1913 to allegedly stop recessions, is supposed to put money back into circulation to stop slides, the downwards, in other words, expanding the money supply. Does the exact opposite of what it's supposed to do, and it contracts the money supply, thus accelerating the depression. Milton Friedman says, this is Milton Friedman, Nobel Prize economist, says this is what caused the crash and the depression, was a manipulation of the Federal Reserve. This isn't us. This is you and me saying this. This is Milton Friedman, a very highly respected American economist, I think now deceased.
Yeah.
And by the way, students, former students, whether it's from Broward College or Westminster, you probably got one of these sheets. It was my conspiracy sheet, and the essay question was on the causes of the Great Depression, the causes of the stock market crash, and the Federal Reserve is the last besides boom and bust cycle and stock prices, the Federal Reserve's role is right there. Formed in 1913 by John D. Rockefeller and others, St. Simon's Island. It is a private corporation. Believe it or not, it's private. Federal Reserve is private, but it controls the American economy, which is governmental, federal. They serve for a term of 7 years, and I think there's 5 of them. I'm not sure. They serve for 7 years. They're appointed by the president. And I remember Paul Volcker one time during the Reagan administration was chairman of the Federal Reserve, was complaining because the reporters were really asking him some hard questions about stuff during the Reagan years and the economy. And he said to them this, chairman of the Federal Reserve said this to them. And think of this when we think of government by the people. He said, and, for the people, and, they're accountable to us, and government's supposed to be accountable to us. We are the government. John Locke said in Essay on Civil Government, 1691. This is what Paul Volcker said to the reporters. I am not accountable to anyone. I'm not accountable to you. I'm not accountable to anybody. And he walked out. He was wearing like a Mr. Rogers sweater, a bathrobe, slippers, and turned around and walked back into his home because he was out in his front porch picking up the newspaper or whatever that had been thrown there. And that is the attitude of the Federal Reserve. And we certainly saw that before the pandemic, as you said, with all that trading, these guys doing all this crap behind our backs. That's the Federal Reserve and the
causation. That's how it's always been.
Yes, the causation of the stock market crash. Go ahead, your turn.
No, you're on a roll.
I know, but I mean that's it. Go ahead.
One of the reoccurring themes of the show is that history repeats itself.
Yeah, it does.
And so we've been through this before. Yep. We're seeing signs of it now.
Man.
Okay. We've been through this before. We went through it in the 80s. We went through it in the 2000s, with the housing bubble.
Right.
I was affected by that personally because I had a restaurant. Okay. So I had a small business, and our sales went from 3 million a year to 500,000 next year. I mean, it was a total decline because, obviously when people lose all their investment, their portfolio goes away. The last thing they do is entertainment. And we had some Florida laws. We had a different government here in Florida back then too, which kind of hamstringed small businesses. But again, that's a different that's a different show. But
yeah.
So your version of the stock market crash is obviously a lot different from the mainstream media's version of the stock market crash.
Real quick, I got a correction here. There are 12
go ahead.
Federal Reserve regions are sponsor. Just Monig sent in that. Thank you, Monig. That is good. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. And remember, if you're on YouTube, you can live chat us. So, if you're on Facebook right now, hit that YouTube link and you can go on YouTube. We can't live chat on Facebook, unfortunately. So
Lonnie's parents made her read medical books. Sorry, we're just jumping out here.
No, it's okay. It's a live show.
I guess that was quite an operation. Okay, that's enough. Back to the assisted living facility. Go ahead. Back to the crash.
Go ahead. Yeah, back to the crash. So I'm just going through this. So we had the Wall Street crash of 1929. That's what we were just discussing. But it wasn't just one day. It obviously happened over a period of time. It happened for weeks, and then it didn't recover until obviously they had to make. That's when they formed the SEC, right? The Security Exchange Commission.
Yeah, and it recovered towards the end of 1932 as Roosevelt was surging in the polls and Hoover was not. And anyway, that's exactly right. So it was. I don't want to say it was timed to be that way, but it's interesting that the Federal Reserve starts to loosen their policy and starts to put money into circulation to stop the slide, start to gradually bring things back up as Roosevelt is about to win the presidency, which he does in 1932. Nothing to fear but fear itself.
So
So
there's a
go ahead.
correlation, right? You have
Yep.
to kind
Yeah.
of make, kind of like the Pearl Harbor incident, right? We talked
Hmm.
about that. Kind of like all these other things. You have to kind of there's a crisis. We're in crisis politics world,
Yeah.
right? And we have been for some time. So you have to kind of create a situation and then profit off of it.
Hmm.
Who do you think profited the most off that stock crash? It wasn't
Well,
the it wasn't the poor, right?
no, and it would be the people that made the call and got their money out while everything fell, and they
Because they
come in and
knew.
buy. They yes, because foreknowledge, because I don't know, the members of the Federal Reserve are appointed by the president, and as I say, they serve for I think 7 years. There's 12 of them, 12 regions, 12 member banks, as Monig is filling it in here. Very good. Um,
Well, she's a
that is correct.
macroeconomist,
Yeah, she
graduate
is.
of Harvard and MIT.
Yes.
So
Wow.
we should probably bring her in as a
Yes,
special
we should.
guest
And we
because
should
she
remind
could
her
she could explain this whole thing to
and
us.
our shared your ancestor and my ancestor way back when helped found Reverend John Harvard in the founding of Harvard College. One of our ancestors coming over, one of them that came on the Mayflower. I don't know who it is. Harvard also is now experiencing a 95% vaccination rate. They have 95% of people working. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. We won't go there. Let's not.
yeah. Let's stick
Maybe
with the
later. I don't.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's.
yeah.
Okay. Stick with
We
the
can bring
money.
that up later
Yeah.
because
Okay.
that
Well, I just
affects
read that.
that
Yeah. I
affects the
just.
economy too.
Yeah. Sure does.
We'll get
Anyway.
put in the gulag.
Yeah. No. Let's not. Okay. Well, they do, and if they're obeying
Well,
everything,
we
then
are the number one
yeah.
least watched show on YouTube, so maybe
Yeah.
maybe not. Maybe we
Okay.
could talk
Well, I
about
didn't say
whatever we
anything
want.
negative. They've got 95% of their people vaccinated, but we'll stop it there. You're right. Okay. Go.
All right,
Continue.
history
Got a
of
lot to
money.
cover. Yes. History of money. Okay.
The
Jeez.
US dollar, the history of the dollar, the history of currency. What is currency? What is money, right?
Yeah.
It's paper, it's a psychological thing. It's a verification system. It's an exchange of goods, right? Or services,
Yeah.
right? You have to pay people. Back in
Right.
the day, it used to be, uh, uh you know, we trade you traded animal skins or spearheads or stuff like that, right? That's what made
Mm.
everything valuable. It's barter, right?
Right.
And then the Chinese, I think, were the first ones to invent actual currency.
Hmm.
Um, and then they were the
Sounds right.
first ones, I think, in 700 BC to actual create paper currency. And then instead of on their currency, on our paper money, it says "In God We Trust." But
Hmm.
back then, in the Chinese currency, it used to say "Counterfeiters will be beheaded." So,
Wow.
uh,
Jeez.
but paper money is only it only benefits the issuer. Okay, so it only benefits the person making the currency, right? Because it's
Yeah.
paper. It doesn't cost the
Hmm.
same as land or silver or gold. It's just a
Hmm.
piece of paper, okay? And
Right.
so there's many forms of currency. If and I always say there's two types of apocalypses, right? There's the
Fiat.
end of the world
Yeah. Go
apocalypse
ahead.
where uh nothing works. uh
Yeah.
there's no economy, there's no nothing. um and gold or silver won't be valuable because you can't eat it, you can't use it, right? So a silver coin or a gold coin won't be valuable if the world ends, right? If everything ends,
Hmm.
you go back to, I need water, I need food, I need a weapon, I need something to survive, right?
Hmm.
And then there's a lesser form of an apocalypse where it's more of the country collapses, right? The economy collapses, but there
Mhm.
is still a form of a trade, right? So
Mhm.
you could still trade, like I have some stuff here. You could still trade a silver coin, right? Because there's
Mhm.
still some semblance of an economy. You can trade, and I like these. These are my favorite. These are 1/10 pieces of gold, right? And the reason why I like those is because you don't have to like completely cash out a gold coin. And then you have like back then you had spearheads like arrowheads, but today we have
Yeah.
bullets, right? So it's kind
Yeah.
of the same system, but the one thing that won't get you anywhere is a dollar, right? If the economy collapses and the government collapses and everything goes to piece of crap, the one thing that won't be worth anything but is worth something now is something like this, right? That's a
Mhm.
hundred
Yeah.
dollar bill. They call these
Wow.
blues. Do you know why they call these blues?
No, I'm a school teacher. I've never seen $100 bill. Go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah. Well, there you go.
Sorry.
Well, they call these blues, and the reason why they call
Oh,
these blues is it's
wow.
blue paper, but it also has this little line in it, right? Right there. You know what's in that line?
Um, Man, a
It's
radioactive
it's
something
a,
or
it's a
other.
it's a magnetic strip, right? It's a magnetic
Hmm.
strip in that little piece of paper, right? So,
Hmm.
and the reason why they do that, they've only started doing it with this dollar bill, and I'll tell you why. And this is a conspiracy show. So,
Yeah.
if you have one of these, chances are it won't show up on any kind of radar. But if you have a stack of them, right, that's about 5 large, right? So if you have a
Yeah.
stack of them, they can now detect that. They can detect that money. So it's interesting how the paper currency has evolved, but you know, that's
Well,
my conspiracy.
I'll be under the radar for the rest of my life until you know,
until
throw dirt on me 6 feet
until
under.
you, yeah,
They won't
until
be able
you're
to track me.
yeah.
What's this guy doing here? I don't know. You know, uh, how about if you cover that with foil? You're $100 bills
No,
in
you can't.
foil. That doesn't.
It so
Okay.
uh the so it $100 bills are kind of like an enigma to the
Yeah.
American currency.
Yeah.
They're only in circulation for us, the plebeians,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's true.
the banks, when you use a paper currency, the banks
Hmm.
have to have a system of being able to verify that currency. So they're like people say, well,
Hmm.
$500 bills and $1,000 bills and all these high
Hmm.
valuation dollars don't exist in circulation. So America or the Federal Reserve does print those bills. They used to. They were
Hmm.
$1,000 bills. They used to print $50,000 bills and $100,000 bills. And the reason why they did that was so that the bank could have that monetary that value in their bank, right? And I know we're
Hmm.
kind of getting far ahead because we have this screen on our show
Yeah,
here.
I see that. I
Uh,
see that.
and but these were the first forms of American currency,
Okay.
and it goes all the way back to post-Revolutionary War. And right now the main topic in the media and today is inflation, and we all are experiencing it, right? We all see it.
Yeah.
We go to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store the other day, and I had maybe half a cart, right? And we're talking basics: milk, bread, cheese, meats, nothing expensive, nothing extraordinary, but it was
Hmm.
$150,
Yeah. What about
for
bacon?
half a cart.
Bacon goes from
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Like
16 ounces to 12 ounces. It's the same
yeah,
price.
there's Marble. She's
Hey, Marble.
yeah,
Wow. I
she's
miss Marble.
crawling all over me.
Great, great cat. Great
Yeah,
cat.
she is. She'll be 13. 13 or
Wow.
14 this week. Well,
Wow.
Katie turns 13, so she'll be.
And that's October 16th, right?
Katie is October 11th. She'll be.
Oh man, I got to get that
Hey, don't
card in
want
the
to
mail.
mess that up on a live show.
I gotta get that. I gotta get that check. It'll
It's
arrive
okay.
late. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
Man,
She
I
doesn't
don't know why
care.
I get that.
Just buy her a
All right.
video, like buy her some on her video game. She cares. All right, so
Okay.
real
Okay.
quick, All right.
Yes.
So the first American currency was Benjamin Franklin's paper.
Yeah.
It was his paper company, and these
Yeah.
are some examples of the first paper currency in America. And
Yeah.
they were based off of English pounds, sterlings, shillings, stuff like that. And it was Benjamin Franklin's paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into a little bit of the, this is later. This is 1796, which is they started writing. You could write a check, right?
Yeah.
Well, the banks could write checks.
Let me
Regular
let me
people
jump
could write
let
checks.
me
Yeah,
jump back to
Go ahead,
the
jump in.
post-Revolutionary era. October 1794, Western Pennsylvania, Bedford to be exact, was the rallying point of Western Pennsylvania farmers who were not buying into any of the stuff of United States currency. They wanted a barter economy, and they wanted a different form of trading, a commodity form of trading, whiskey. And this was the Whiskey Rebellion. And they were using casks of whiskey because when they would harvest their grain crops would often get compromised by moisture, water or whatever. They couldn't keep it dry. They didn't have, elevators like they do today out in Iowa and those places. So they would just let the stuff ferment. They would make whiskey, put it in casks, and they would use whiskey as trade, whiskey as currency. And George Washington and others would have none of that. The Federalists in Washington, D.C. would have none of that. Hence, you have the Whiskey Rebellion, where George Washington, around October 1794, exercised the first time in American history commander-in-chief powers, Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, and marched the New Jersey. He activated the New Jersey and Pennsylvania militias out what would be now on the route of the current Pennsylvania Turnpike towards the farmers to suppress the rebellion of using, whiskey as currency. And the farmers dispersed and went on their way. And I hate to say it, that might have been our best chance of having him, and George Washington was complicit as well as those militias in dispersing the farmers, and a form of currency using barter, using whiskey as currency, casks of whiskey, and bypassing all this bureaucracy, which would later become, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, U.S. Treasury, blah, 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 Federal Reserve, unless we go there. I just want to throw that in because you were talking about post-Revolutionary War. That's my little
Yeah,
contribution. Go
no,
ahead.
I mean that's
Yeah,
what we're talking. That's what we're trying to get into
yeah,
is what is the U.S. dollar? What
yeah.
is money?
That's the history of it. And that
You
would be
know,
the history of it as it was repressed, as that form of currency was repressed. Um, so their whiskey, I guess, was not,
was
not
money.
matching up with was not matching up with what the United States said, and one of our sponsors says money by declaration, because that's what the United States declared it as. And these whiskey rebellion farmers in Western Pennsylvania were going against the United States money by declaration. I think I'm interpreting Monig here correctly. Anyway, yeah, you got to get her on the show or somehow put her in another cubicle here. Go ahead.
Well,
Sort of like Hollywood Squares in the future. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we try to accept guests, and I
Yes.
invited one tonight. He may be watching, but I
Okay.
didn't hear back from him because I think it's especially when it comes to money and the theory of money and how it
Yeah.
psychologically affects people. It's always best to have the brightest minds
Yeah.
to kind of explain it to people. You
Yeah.
know, again, you and I are not
No.
money people. I've studied it. I understand the phenomenon of it. Um, I understand all the regulations and the theories behind it. Uh, my thing is, and this is what I do. And again, I'm not opining. The word I learned today.
Yeah. Bill
I'm not
O'Reilly.
opining any kind of monetary, financial advice.
Hmm.
Uh, I've done okay. You've done okay, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so I don't keep a lot of cash. I buy precious metals. I buy. There you go.
I've done okay.
We'll get into that in a minute.
Sorry. Sorry.
But land is a big thing. Um,
It's just silver
Uh,
certificates.
yeah,
It's
you,
not like I'm
you
loaded.
think you,
I'm
you feel you're
typical.
so
I'm
rich
so
off
full of
of,
crap. I am so
you've
full of
had
crap.
those you've had those since I was a kid.
I know.
Those
I'm so
same
full of.
dollars are in
I'm
the
so full of
same book.
beverages.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
All right.
Same book.
Well, let
Lincoln Finds a General by T. Harry Williams,
yeah, that's the book it's in.
1951.
That's the
Book.
same book.
I know it's the
All
same
right,
book.
so
I
if you
haven't
break
changed.
into Mr. Joint's house, if you
I
rob
know.
Mr. Joint, go to that
Just do
book
it. Go to
and
that book.
you'll get
Like
all
my,
his silver certificates that
yeah.
are worth probably $5 a piece.
And if you go into
Okay.
my bedroom, you'll get the Confederate money, which is in another place. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So
Comedy.
the the dollar bill has evolved. I mean, look at all these
Yeah,
different. Hey, there's your silver certificate, Dad.
there they are. Let me
Yeah,
look
there
at them.
they are. All right,
Oh man,
let me get all. I know, man.
there they
You
are.
are you are big money.
When I pass away, probably the funeral
Just
director. Yeah,
don't exchange those when you get
no, no,
a
yeah,
Japanese massage.
no. When I go, yeah, or if I go through the drive-through to get a six-pack,
Yeah, don't.
another
Yeah,
beverage.
yeah,
Okay, there we are,
yeah.
right there. And of course, the worthless money, which isn't really that worthless
Well,
because
that's collectible.
it's collectible. But so is
All right,
dust
let's
on.
talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Okay,
So that takes care. We talked about the Revolutionary War, and then we had a problem. Right, there was a big
yeah,
problem, and the problem was states were issuing their own currency.
yes, as these states did.
Okay,
In
so
the,
let's talk about that.
this is
5 minutes, go.
and, well, this is odd because it's not Confederate states that are issuing this. It's the Confederate States of America that issues this, and they had to hand number them. And let me see if we have a date on there. Um, 1861. So this is right from this one here in the top. This is right from the get go. September 2nd, 1861, out of Richmond, Virginia. And I remember what the problem with this was is that the other Confederate, wait, we don't want a national government. We are a Confederate States of America. So they started panicking, and the Confederate States began to issue their own currency. That is actually pretty rare what I have there, those two things. So if you're breaking into my house, it's in my bedroom. Um, but anyway, yeah, this is silver certificate. But go ahead, go back now. I finished that. We got to get
All right.
if we
So
get
we
that
have
far. If
the
we get
state
that far,
currency.
yeah,
The the Civil War had the issuance of the greenback, right?
right,
Because they were printed on. They had green ink, and it was a federal currency. They wanted to kind of bring everybody in. Now, a lot of people say that the Civil War was over slavery, and it was kind of because
kind of,
the slaves were being bought and sold. The slave owners were borrowing money from banks. They were using slaves as collateral, and
yeah,
then
commodity collateral. That's
when the banks would
follow,
come to
follow the
get
money, follow the
yeah,
money.
when the banks would come to get their loan back, the slave owners would be like, "Well, they ran away or they died or whatever." So, yes, it was about slavery kind of. Uh,
Hmm.
but it was more of the slave owners were ripping off the banks using the slaves
Hmm.
as currency. So we have now. Let's get into what your favorite topic, because you have the dollar bills to show. We have the gold standard, right?
Hmm.
And this was back when you could take a dollar bill, a $1 bill,
Wow,
okay, and you go to a bank and you could get $1 worth of gold or
wow,
silver, right?
those were the days.
And then you had the Gold Reserve Act, right? That was in 1933.
Hmm.
This was after the Great Depression. This was after the stock market crash, right? You could
Yep.
go. It was They were fighting deflation because that was another problem.
Yeah.
We talk about inflation, but there's also deflation. And
Hmm.
then obviously today we have the hyperinflation thing happening, but that's we'll get into that later. Uh, so here it is, the silver certificate, right? This is your favorite little topic
Yeah.
here. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the silver certificate. What is the silver certificate, and how did it come about?
Hmm.
Go ahead, bring out your
Well,
money again.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just gonna.
Your stripper money.
Yeah, that's it.
Go ahead,
This
put
was
it
in
up.
one of my garters, um, and I forget. I got this when I was like my first or second year at Westminster Academy. I was tutoring somebody. It was a girl. I think her dad was a dentist. I don't even remember who she was. And the dad came in and he said, "I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but instead of me paying you whatever it was, $10 or $15 an hour, he gave these silver. I don't know. Let's say one, two. I got about 10 singles and a five. It was $15, but it was in silver certificates. He said, someday you'll thank me. So I don't know who you are. I forgot. I think you're dead. But thank you. Um, and I hope your daughter's doing well. Whatever. It's a
All
tutoring
right, so
session.
you got some
There you go.
retirement.
Oh, yeah, right there. That's my retirement.
All right,
That's
but
why I'm.
you
Go ahead.
can't go in. You can only sell those as a collectible. So my point
Yeah.
is you can't go into a bank with those pieces of paper that you have in
No,
your hand and get a piece of
no,
silver.
no.
You
They will
can't
give you
get
$5
a
bill.
piece of gold, right?
They'll be glad to have this because then they'll turn around. The bank will. They have a way of as you mentioned before when we were talking privately, was they have a way of going through all this and finding out what this when they run all their stuff through, and it's really, oh wow, look at this idiot paid. He deposited a $5 bill and it says silver certificate at the
Right.
top,
They're
right?
collectibles
Yeah,
because they're
yeah.
rare.
So they'll turn around, make a bunch of money, and I'm an idiot. So go ahead. That's all
All
right.
right. So
Go
now we
next.
have what's
Move
called
through it.
Federal Reserve notes.
Yes. Oh, geez. A note is a debt. That's what it
Right.
is. Federal Reserve debt. You have Federal Reserve debts in your wallets, unless you're buying everything with American Express, which
Right. So that's a
pretty much
Federal
is what I
Reserve
do.
note.
Yeah.
It's not a actual. It won't buy me it could buy me $100 worth of gold, but the gold
Yeah.
guy is going to charge me a fee and
Yes.
blah blah blah. And there's an exchange rate and all this stuff, and there's a spot value and blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
we're off. So now we're in a point in time in history, not right now, but back then, we're off the gold and silver standard. That happened in 1964 or
Okay.
1963, right after
Okay.
Kennedy died. He was
All
shot,
right.
right? He was up against the
Yes.
Federal Reserve. He
Yep.
wanted to dismantle it. He wanted to get rid of the central banks. He wanted to, keep they used to mint coins with silver in it. Now they don't anymore. They waited till he was assassinated. So there you go. Right. And then
Mm-hmm.
what happened after that? You had Nixon, right? And what did Nixon do? Nixon
19. Yeah.
got us
Whatever.
off. Right. Nixon created what's called to this day the fiat standard.
Fiat
Okay.
currency.
And what Nixon did was the only thing that America had back in the 70s was the oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he based the currency off of oil, right? So it was the oil
Yeah.
standard.
Energy crisis,
And that
1974.
was the only way they were allowed to print more money was the more oil we had. And this was speculative. It's all speculation. And that's another thing that drives me nuts is nothing pisses me off because I play the stock market. Nothing pisses me off than the speculators. The
Yeah.
speculators kind of drive everything, you know. What's the value of gold? What's the value of silver? What's the value of beef? What's the value of
Mm.
sugar and cotton and all the commodities? And then, now the bonds, all the Federal Reserve, we printed more money last year than ever in the history of the United States, ever,
Yeah.
ever. And all they did was just buy government bonds. That's all they did.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the value is a government bond. So fiat currency means it has no intrinsic value, meaning it's not based on anything tangible like a piece of
Mm-hmm.
gold or a piece of silver or anything else. It's just the idea. It's the idea that America is a flourishing country and we're very
Mm-hmm.
valuable and all that stuff. That's all fiat is. And all these other countries have followed suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they could just print as much money as they want. Now, the only downside to printing all that money is inflation, right? And that was in
Yeah.
Germany, right? The Weimar,
The Weimar Republic and
yeah,
the Reichmark. Yes.
yeah. where they had to actually take like a wheelbarrow full of
Hmm.
cash to buy some bread and
A
some
loaf of bread.
water. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's funny too. You know where you get the term making bread? Like I'm gonna go make some bread.
Go
Like I'm
ahead.
gonna
Go
go
ahead.
make some money, make some bread. Okay, that came
Was
from the gold
was it?
rush.
It was out west. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was California and Alaska and all that. That was during the gold
that's
rush.
right.
So the people that made the most money off of the gold rush weren't the actual gold miners, the guys that went and panned gold and all that. They made a lot of money, but the people that profited the most from the gold rush were the uh, the little towns that came up. So you had the guy that made the horseshoes and the saddles and the
Hmm.
gold pans, and then you had all the food, like the people
Hmm.
needed to eat. So the bakers made the
Hmm.
most money. So what they would do is when they first got out there, they would bake all this bread, right? And they would sell it to the gold miners, because the gold miners would just basically eat a piece of bread just to go back out, just to get a little sustenance and go back out and pan for gold again, right? But I got to the point where the gold miners or the bakers knew that if they made less bread, they could charge more for it because of supply and demand. So that's where we get the term, I'm
On
going to go
demand.
make some
Yep.
bread, right? So they would make only a few, as least amount of bread as possible, and then they would auction it off basically to the gold miners, right? Because they were
Wow,
hungry, right?
man.
So it got to a point where one loaf of bread back then, we're talking back then, 1800s,
Yeah.
back then, 1900s, one loaf of bread was $100, a hundred
Wow.
dollars worth of gold.
So
Back then
bread.
money.
So bread or making a lot of dough.
There, yeah,
Wow.
making dough. That's where it
Yeah.
all comes from.
Yep. Wow. That's where the words come from. I'll be darned.
Yeah,
All right.
supply and demand. So
Jeez, I learned
money,
something.
like we talked about earlier, money is leverage. It's leverage. It's getting people. Your leverage is moving people. You know, getting people to do what you want for money.
So
All
the
right, what else
lesson
you got?
here. Well, the lesson here is don't loaf.
Yeah, don't loaf.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Don't
That was
let your
that's.
meat loaf.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh man.
All
Don't be
right,
a heel.
real
Yeah.
quick. We got to spend at least a couple minutes on this.
Yeah.
The International Monetary Fund.
Yeah. Go
This
ahead.
was post World War II, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Go
Yeah.
for it. Formed in 1944.
No. Go. Go. Read it.
No,
Go.
you go. You go. You know
No.
about this.
No.
I don't know about. I
Well,
mean,
it's yeah.
I
Post
could
World
tell
War
you all
II.
my conspiracy theories about the International Monetary Fund,
Probably
the
a tool.
IMF.
Probably a tool of the OSS, which later becomes the CIA, which was a great way to destabilize countries,
Yes.
which and
Yeah.
to get
Fiat
them.
fiat
Yeah.
fiat currency countries.
And we know that with Iran. I mean, we can go all over the world, but that's my understanding of it. But you've done some research. You got this here. Go ahead. I'm lateraling to you. Lateral the football to you. Go.
No, I mean, all the IMF to me does is allow. So after World War II, everything was based on the U.S. dollar,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah. Basically.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So what that allows America to do, what that allows the Federal Reserve to do, not America, the Federal Reserve,
Yeah.
that allows the Federal Reserve to print as much money as it wants.
Yeah.
It can
Which they did.
print as much money as they want. We're in debt, we print the money because we sell our money to other countries. If anyone wants
Yeah.
to use our dollars in their country, we sell them the money and then we send our military over there to protect the bank. That's what we do. Same thing
Yep.
happened in Iraq, same thing happened in Kuwait, same thing happened in Afghanistan, and we take up all their natural resources. So the reason why Afghanistan was such a big deal for 20 years is because they have the opium. They're
Yeah.
85% of the world's opium trade. So all the medicine, the big pharmaceuticals, right? So the IMF kind of allows America to just kind of print up tons of money and then buy up resources. And it makes poor
Hmm.
countries poor, right? So
Hmm.
any other country that tries to print their way out of debt just creates hyperinflation and all these other
Mm-hmm.
problems. And then you get like what happens, in Weimar Germany. Like you said, it took a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread or to buy, some groceries, just some basic necessities, because the money just becomes devalued. But
Mm-hmm.
American money doesn't. And then I know you and I talked about this, and I think I misspoke. When we talked about when U.S. currency is sold to poorer countries, they use polymer, right? That was kind of an
Mm-hmm.
experience, a conspiracy theory. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't use polymer. The actual country will use polymer. So American currency is made of like 80% cotton, 20% linen. It's like a mixture, so it
Yeah.
becomes more durable because it
Mm-hmm.
actually costs money to print money, like if you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine. Uh, so
Or coin money too. Yes,
right, but
metal.
we don't do coin money. We just do fiat. We do paper.
Yeah.
Uh, so a lot of countries like Canada, UK, Australia, even so, there's new money coming out, and they have polymer and it's plastic. So the money will last longer. So you can actually clean it. It won't
Mm-hmm.
tear, stuff like that. It's really weird. Um, but anyways, that was one of my.
Okay.
I misspoke when we talked about like America sending money overseas and it's made of
Yeah.
different materials. They make the same money. I didn't research that enough.
Well, it's pretty close to right. I mean, I think so. I don't see anything, it's in error on. Go ahead. Yeah. So we're pretty much almost at the hour here. So what do you want to do? Because
Well, real quick.
yeah, go ahead and because we can continue this in part two or something. Because I got some stuff here on the
Well,
how
keep going.
Roosevelt.
You keep going. I'm
Well,
gonna try and find some other things, and then
okay. Well, where the switching of taking us off the gold standard or Roosevelt. I have this from my old stuff. Yeah, that's a good place to go. Nothing to fear but fear itself. He and his brains trust. And these are Rexford Guy, Tugwell, and other guys. By the way, they went to the Soviet Union before Roosevelt was inaugurated to study the Soviet system. It's interesting because Biden just appointed as his director of a woman who's Russian national who has supposedly become a naturalized U.S. citizen who received the Lenin Award and is an admirer of the Soviet currency, or rather the Russian currency system. Um, so here we are again. History repeats itself. The Brains Trust in 32 and 33 go to the Soviet Union, study the Soviet economy, come back, and his advisors, Rexford Guy Tugwell, Charles Wolfe Sr., and a few others, send hundreds of pieces of legislation to Congress to pass. So this isn't Congress doing it. This is people out of the White House sending the legislation to Congress. And because of Democratic majorities in both houses, they pass it. Much of this passes quickly, sight unseen. Roosevelt enjoys Democratic majorities in both houses. His New Deal involves direct relief as opposed to his predecessor, Herbert Hoover, who felt that America should work itself out of the Depression with individualism. That was his motto. Roosevelt would become the New Deal, and his predecessor, Herbert Hoover, rugged individualism, work yourself out. No government relief, Hoover said, unless projects paid for themselves, such as dams and toll roads. But Roosevelt says that we're going to have to do something different. We have a New Deal. So in order to pay for those projects to create jobs, Keynesian economics, British economist John Maynard Keynes, Americans can get themselves out of depression by spending itself out. America can do this. So FDR and his New Deal proceed to create money to do just that. Clarence Carson lays this out in his book, and I used Clarence Carson a lot. U.S. history teacher now, emeritus, deceased from Auburn University. So what Roosevelt does is close the banks, and all persons and corporations are to surrender their gold to the Federal Reserve Bank in paper money. FDR calms the fears of his fireside chat, saying exchange rate, quote, exchange rate would be equal, always be equal in gold, And the government bonds, even say on them, the principal and interest would be payable in gold. So he promises that to your great grandmother, my grandmother, on her radio in Melbourne, Florida, that the gold redemption clause. This is the gold redemption clause, and so she turns her stuff in to the Bank of Melbourne, Florida, and gets paper money, and then immediately FDR repudiates the gold standard. He takes us off the gold standard. I think of this as a shell game in Central Park or wherever you see these guys doing this with coconut shells. They move them around. They put a dollar under it, and they're moving it around. You don't know where the dollar is. If you can figure out what he's doing, you get double your money or whatever. This is kind of what FDR. So this by taking us off the gold standard, he devalues the money by reducing the gold content to one half. The government will buy $2 billion of government bonds with paper money, issued $3 billion of paper money secured by nothing, and then starts coining silver. And I don't know what's going on. When I read this, maybe Robbie, you understand this. I have no idea. And when I've taught this, whether it was at Westminster, Broward College, or Boca Raton, I'm not sure what was going on. I can't follow it. Because Roosevelt then repudiates the gold redemption clause. Okay, in other words, it doesn't exist. So my grandmother was duped, and she took her money. She tried to get her $14,000 out of the Bank of Melbourne in 1933, and she had already remarried by then, my step-grandfather, and they wouldn't. And that's where I
Is
got
that
that
the
fraction.
Spanish?
Yeah, Spanish-American War guy, and I had the fractional currency sheet in that closet there, which I should have gotten that out too, show off all my money. So when Roosevelt repudiates the gold redemption clause, the price of gold begins to rise daily. The confiscated gold is taken to Fort Knox. No bank or lending institution would dare lend money during these times. So the federal government begins to lend money at low rates, the big beginning of welfare as we know it. And that's really from Clarence Carson. And that's where I got that from. So we end up with Monopoly Go. Well, sort of.
Well, this has been up. I mean, people can read it.
Yeah. Okay, there it is.
Uh,
Wow.
you remember playing Monopoly with us as a
Yeah.
kid, right?
Yeah. I didn't do very well. I didn't teach you very well. Well, you learn on your own, money stuff, but
Well, we've done well. We've
I
done
wasn't very good
okay.
at that.
We've
Yeah,
done
you
okay.
have. Yeah.
Okay.
Jeffrey
But
even logged in here just a little while
yeah,
ago.
I see that he wants us to end the stream. For the love of God, please end this. That's your son there.
That's awesome.
I
We
love
got to
that
get
kid.
him. We got to
I
get
love
him.
that kid. Yeah, we got to
Yeah.
get him as a guest.
Yeah, we got to get him and Monty at the same time.
Yeah.
The
Oh
Fed is
God,
both public and
that'll be
private.
fun.
That's good. Yeah, you're
All right,
right.
so
Monty's
so
right.
so real quick, just to end the show, we're gonna just kind of try to tie all this in
Oh
what we've been
gosh.
talking about,
Yeah.
and we're talking about the the value of American money. Okay, this
Yeah.
is the money that goes around the world, right? All right. So what happens if the bank runs out of money in Monopoly?
Wow.
Okay. The bank never goes bankrupt. You
Jeffrey, you remember
continue
this. You
playing.
used to lose all the time and get mad. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. All right. So you use slips of paper. If you're the banker in Monopoly, you use slips of paper and
Yeah.
you just print more money. You just make more money. You just give it
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. That's it. There it is. That's what
I
we're
mean,
doing.
that's what everybody's taught, right?
Yep.
When you play this
Stop.
game.
Yep. Just let
All right.
everybody
And
into
so
the.
what happened the other day? All right. So real quick, talking about when we said that the banks would issue $100,000 notes, right? Because it was easier to transport the money
Yeah.
and all that stuff, and they could just print themselves out of debt, right? Well, what do we talk about? What do they got going on now? What are they talking about? It's not,
Yeah.
it's not in fluidity yet, but they are talking about $1 trillion coin,
Wow.
right? $1 trillion coin. They're going to mint $1 trillion coin. That was, I mean, Janet Yellen says, she's the Secretary of Treasury.
Yeah.
She's saying,
Jeez.
that's never going to happen. But they used to do that. They used to
Yeah.
print large bills to print America out of debt. We're the only nation in the world that's allowed to
Hmm.
do that due to the International Monetary Fund and the fact that we are the world currency. Everything is
Yeah.
based on the dollar. And I also, when I first got into trading stocks, I learned from a friend that a lot of like, if you want to trade currency, right? So
Hmm.
you want to trade, if the rate goes up on one currency and goes down on another, the indexes and all that. What they use is the Big Mac model. It's called the Big Mac model. This is an actual thing.
Yes.
So McDonald's, the Big
Hmm.
Mac, right? So McDonald's spends a lot of money. They have 40 something thousand restaurants around the world. They can figure out exactly how much a Big Mac is going to cost throughout the world. They do all the research. So the economists, the macroeconomists, use the Big Mac model to determine the exchange rates on currency. Because if a Big Mac costs, you know, certain amount of money in Japan, well, they know that the American amount of money is this, and so they can make an exchange. It's freaking crazy that
Yeah.
they use McDonald's Big Macs, and this has been going on since the 80s.
Yeah.
They use McDonald's Big Macs to determine the exchange rates of world currency.
Yeah.
So, do
Yeah.
you get a
Consistent.
toy if you get it right? I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't know.
All right. So we have America wants to print $1 trillion coin. Go for it. Well, how did that work out for other countries?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
know of any
Germany.
other trillionaires
No.
around the world
No.
that
No.
printed currency? Well, here you go. If you live in Zimbabwe, you're a trillionaire. There you go. You get a
Wow.
$100 trillion note. And I think that's
Jeez.
worth like 10 cents.
Yeah. Man, that's really
It's
something.
paper money. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything.
No.
So where do you think we're headed?
Yeah.
One world
Not.
currency.
There it is. Yep.
So you got Bitcoin, Ethereum, you got the altcoins, the stable coins. It's all internet. It's all decentralized. Everybody thinks that, they say, well, it has no intrinsic value. But the value of it is there's no banking fees because there's no regulation.
Yeah.
There's no centralization. There's no central bank that controls it. It's using a different technology, blockchain technology, and we could spend a whole show talking about blockchain
Yeah. I'd
technology.
like to hear
I've
that
researched it.
someday.
It
Yes.
it it's very good as far as protecting your finances, but you know, what's it going to do? It's just going to piss off all the central banks. It's going to piss off that one world, that IMF, the
Yeah.
stuff that's been around now for what,
Yeah.
60 years, 70 years?
Yeah. The Great Reset.
The
Yep.
yen, they're going to a digital currency. There's the yen. Okay. So money evolves, right? The paper
Yeah.
evolves. Well, this is kind of where we're headed. We're headed
Yep.
towards a digital world. I thought this was funny. Janet Yellen, and then the guys in the background saying buy Bitcoin. It's kind of a slap in the face. Uh, and then, John McAfee suicided himself, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but before he suicided himself, he had a bunch of Bitcoin that he was trying to unload. He was trying to get some messages out, and basically, if you go to a digital currency, it can be counterfeited. You could be hacked. You could be wiped off. You know, you could have millions of dollars in your digital wallet, and then the government just decides to shut you off. The same,
Hmm.
it's the same rules apply. So, and then, the whole world's a stage, obviously. There we go. There's
Hmm.
Biden taking his shot on a stage,
Yeah. There it is.
which they
Wow.
said wasn't a stage, but the whole world is a theater.
Yeah.
Okay. The money is just, you know,
Wonder what was
it's a
in that
prop.
shot.
It's
What
a
was
prop, you know.
probably saline solution? It probably wasn't even a vaccine or a
Oh, you think
booster.
it's saline?
I don't know.
Saline?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Hey, we're the number one least show, the
Yes.
number one
All right. We're
least
doing well.
watched show on Facebook, so we don't have to worry about censorship.
Yeah. All
So,
right.
real
Wow.
quick, let's get into. You want to talk
Yeah.
about
It was either
the
Sure, or boost. Oh
Do you
yeah.
think it's going to be a? All right, so let me put it this way: is there a microchip in the vaccine? I don't think so. But is there a microchip in your phone that says you had the vaccine? Yes.
Hmm.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Well, I have antibodies. I had it, and I recovered, and I have immunity. And Rand Paul says I'm just as good. So does John Hopkins. John Hopkins and
Ah,
one of
well, Rand Paul doesn't run the World
no, he doesn't.
Economic
No,
Forum.
he
So,
doesn't. Yep.
hey, I just found a document that says all the restrictions have been lifted and we are all free. It's old, though. It was dated 1776.
Great place to stop. There it is.
Yeah.
Remember that Declaration of Independence. Wow. All right, wrap it up.
All right.
Deal.
Well, we did episode 8.
Wow,
It's a
man.
wrap.
All right, it is
Anything
a
you'd
wrap.
like to conclude
Um,
with our episode 8?
my shirt's not tight. It's an XL. Pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, Mr. Joint Live T-shirts are available. Just donate to the show. Like I said, how is it free if you have to pay for it? Well, you're not paying for it. It's a donation. Oh, I think we lost my dad. All right, everybody, have a good night. Thanks for joining in. We will be here every Friday night at 8 p.m. Don't forget to join. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're on Facebook, don't forget to share this video. Everybody wants to see Mr. Joint, and we will be here next week. Thank you all very much, and you all have a good weekend and stay safe. Good night, everybody.